Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And despite the fact that I've touched upon this subject recently, in different podcasts, and especially in one of my most recent podcasts, I kind of expounded on it and expanded on it. But I guess I just kind of sort of put it like, as a by the way. And I think it's time that we talk about it properly. But again, since I've kind of talked about it little by little every now and then, maybe I wouldn't have much to say. But the reason why I have to now talk particularly about this subject is because I'm sure people are probably thinking, okay, so the whole world is finally opening their eyes to India, and they're talking about all the the problematic aspects of India. And why are you sitting and trying to defend India when you're a Pakistani? Well, number one, I did not defend India in any way. I'm just trying to be objective, especially because I'm a Pakistani. So I have to be objective. For example, as I said, that when you're talking about body odors and he smells like curry and this and that, that is what I am totally against, because as I said, you have no idea how much body odor you people have too. I mean, the stench of the streets of New York, for example, which you will never find even in the dirtiest streets of India, is what I'm basically trying to say. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to be a little more factual when you're trying to talk about the problematic aspects that you have with Indians. Another thing that also I could not wrap my head around is because, as far as I know, the Indians and the Indians that I know, Pakistanis, obviously I know that they always go and have a wedding in a proper venue, right? And as far as I know, Indians do that too, in Canada especially, and even in Europe. So when people in Canada are complaining about how sick and tired they are of the Indian weddings that last through the night, and all the noise and this and that, that is actually another thing I find confusing. But again, I've been out of touch for so many years, I guess, but not even so many years. I think the recent most wedding that I managed to check out was literally this year in Canada, and it was an Indian wedding, and as far as I know, they did it in a venue too. So that confused me a bit again. So I was thinking, okay, so since when? And it's also a bit funny because actually in India itself, they do not normally do night weddings. They do daytime weddings. So I would have thought that when they're living abroad, they would coincide with the Western way, which is also daytime weddings. Now in Pakistan, I think the last time Pakistan ever did daytime weddings was in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s maybe, because at least for 3 decades, I have seen night weddings in Pakistan. That is, Pakistan is known for night weddings. And even now, if I talk to my Indian friends, they usually have daytime weddings in India. So that was another thing that confused me. And I know that the Canadians specifically mentioned that it's the Indians and not the Pakistanis. So they specifically mentioned that it's the Indians who made a lot of noise, and their weddings were never ending, and it lasted through the night, and that was they were getting fed. I'm sorry, but again, I couldn't relate to that, because the Indians that I know in Canada, again, they do their weddings in venues. So yeah, that was another thing. And so I'm not defending anybody. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of that. When it comes to civic sense and all, yeah, okay, I would agree with that. When it comes to dirt, yes, because as I said, actually, if you remember, in fact, even in some of my previous podcasts, I touched upon this fact that when I lived in England, and this is like this is almost 20 years ago. That time when I did my master's there, one of my class fellows, she was Maltese, and she was a very sweet, very nice, and a very good friend of mine. And she once told me, I remember, and that stuck with me. I remember that she told me that, what, I went to India once, and I was very, very surprised. It wasn't what it was shown to be on the media. And she meant that she was surprised, not in a good way. And again, even that time when I mentioned this in my podcast, in my previous podcast, I explained the fact that yes, India, when you look at India and you look at all the propaganda and the PR they've done, you will realize that they've worked very hard on their image as opposed to Pakistan. And as I've actually talked about this before, that Pakistan, on the other hand, not only did Pakistan never work on its image and on propaganda, but it allowed, yes, it literally allowed the UK, India, and America to falsify a narrative against Pakistan. And in fact, again, this is something that I did mention in some of my in my previous podcasts. Whenever I talked about Pakistan and India, I did mention that in fact, if you look back in the 90s, also they were, because in those times you didn't have social media. So here's where you need to understand. In those times you didn't have the social media, and in the early 2000s, when the social media was beginning, it was beginning more in the sense of blogging. It's not this platform that we have today, right? We blogged. So we had WordPress, and we had such domains in which we wrote about our experiences. And over there you will see that many tourists from Britain, from Germany, from other parts of Europe and America and all have always blogged about it, or even written articles about it in the newspaper. Those who had who were journalists or had some sort of an affinity with the journalistic aspect of the media. And each and every one of them mentioned the fact that Pakistan was underrated, that the fact that the Western media played a huge role in undermining Pakistan's image, that Pakistan was the complete opposite of whatever it is that was shoved against their faces. And they all complained about the fact, not complained, I guess, but they lamented on the fact that Pakistan could have done better in terms of promoting itself, that Pakistan never promoted itself to the world in this way, and that they wished that Pakistan would begin to do so. Now, as we know, it was Imran Khan who started promoting Pakistan in this way very actively. And it is because of Imran Khan that people started flocking to Pakistan all over again. It's not that people never came to Pakistan. It's just that Pakistan had a very quiet tourism industry. That means you had regulars. Yes, we had regular tourists who came again and again and again to Pakistan, and they especially came to the northern areas of Pakistan, which is our biggest touristic aspect, actually. Especially people from Europe, because the weather is the same, the environment it's kind of, they're comfortable in the northern areas. It's cooler, you have mountains, you have streams, you have rivers, you have valleys, it's gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous views. If you're an adventurer, adventurers especially, they love Pakistan, because for them hiking and mountaineering and all that for them Pakistan is the ideal country, for raw adventures. And even bikers, as you know, we've had a biking tourism, which was initiated by one of our bikers, who was actually very famous for traveling the world on his bike. So, and if you remember, he has his own social media ID, which is, it just came to my mind and now again it's gone blank. A different agenda. Yeah, a different agenda. So he also popularized, biking tourism in Pakistan, because he and his fellow bikers all over the world, they would get together, they would travel. And then so he started arranging for them to come to Pakistan, and then he would lead them onto a whole tour. And that is another way that Pakistan once again became more, it got more PR, you could say. And now this was the time of social media. So when social media came is actually when things began to get a little more clear cut. So, articles and blogging, these are the quiet, aspects of tourists and tourism in Pakistan. when did it actually get hyped? As I said, Imran Khan came and hyped everything up, obviously, and then everybody is a fan of Imran Khan's, like it or not. The whole world is a fan of Imran Khan's. We know that, okay? Everybody knows that. It doesn't matter because he was an amazing cricketer, and then he was an amazing batsman, and he was an amazing persona, and and then he married Jemima Khan, who in herself was, a very famous personality. So the two famous personalities getting married, and then and then him entering into politics. So I mean, his whole life has been documented. He has been in the media throughout his life, basically, right? Since he began cricket, all the way to his political days till date. So it's no, it's no surprise there. I mean, even India is a fan of Imran Khan. I mean, imagine that. Even the enemies are fans of Imran Khan. So that's how it is, okay? Political enemies, not people. And he's known for his charity work. He's known for making the cancer hospital that is unlike any other cancer hospital in the world, because you're actually getting free treatment. So I mean, this is the kind of person that he is. And so when such a person comes and then he propagates about his country and he talks about his country, and then he attracts you. And so obviously now he's attracting you towards his country when he tells you of all the glory days of Pakistan, and then he tells you that how Pakistan still has so much more to offer. And so tourism starts. It's because especially he worked on the tourism industry as well, by the way. He literally worked on, getting some different parts of the northern areas ready for tourists, getting some some hiker trails and this and that. He worked for the tourism industry to bloom. And the reason that we still have so much tourism is not just because of what Imran Khan initiated. It's also because of the results of it, being that so many people started coming. Vloggers came, famous personalities came, influencers came. And because now you have the social media, you can vlog your experiences, live stream, and just post everything you want unfiltered. And as we know, these are people who are already influencers, so they already have a following, so they can reach far and wide in a very short span of time, right? So when these people started coming, that is when they showed you unfiltered what India was all about and what Pakistan was all about. Actually, that is what happened. It's not that Pakistan suddenly started becoming... No, Pakistan, as I said, was always an underrated but much loved touristic spot for travelers who loved to return again and again. Right? But all that noise wasn't generated. It was Imran Khan who started generating that positive noise, you see. But India has been drumming up about its reputation for decades through Bollywood, through their media, and they have been showing you an image of India that didn't really exist. That's what I'm also trying to say, and I've said it very clearly before even. The culture shock that people get when they come to Pakistan and the culture shock that people get when they come to India is not new. It has been there right from the start, except that people before didn't have the kind of platforms that they have now, in which they could actually show you and make it viral. Right? So now everybody has a camera, everybody has a social media platform, everybody's basically a vlogger. So, you just whip out your mobile phone and you whip out your cameras and you just record on the spot whatever is going on, and then you post it and you say, look, this is what happens here. But the truth is that the tourists have faced this in India for a long time. But it is also true that it seems to be getting worse. I think the Modi government is what made it worse. And I think that the Western governments didn't care much for it. The fact that they endorsed this hate politics that India generated. Remember, I've already talked about this too. In fact, in my recent most podcast, just the 1 hours ago, I mentioned this again, that Modi's government rules on hate and division. During his governance, the amount of harassment cases, the amount of genocide cases, the amount of mass murder cases, the amount of hate crimes, the amount of rape crimes, they have increased. And this is actually why also people have a problem, and we too, we have a problem when India talks about being one of the oldest religions in the world, and they talk about their pride and their culture and this and that. I'm sorry, but if whatever it is that you people are doing to your tourists or even to each other, this is what your culture is. I mean, we in Pakistan, we're always lamenting about this exact same culture, the remnants of this culture that has seeped into our society, despite the fact that, as we always say, we've converted to Islam. If we've converted to Islam, why do we still have a piece of that culture, that remnant, that is constantly crossing us and crossing Islam, That is our problem. Because we know that culture that we try to take pride in is not worth taking pride in. There's a lot of flaws, there's a lot of toxicity in that culture. What we actually should take pride in is the Islamic culture. That Islamic culture is the thing that has shown us tolerance, that has made us so laid back. That is what enables us to laugh in our misery. Even the Indians, they always say, there's nobody like Pakistan, like Pakistanis. Only Pakistanis can make fun of their own situation. Only Pakistanis can have big hearts. Only Pakistanis can just laugh through their pain. Yeah, this is the Islamic aspect, albeit exaggerated aspect, because seriously, even Islam doesn't tell you to just laugh through everything and let tyranny occur. No. But yes, this is an Islamic influence that you will see in most Islamic countries. I've also mentioned this, that Islamic countries are known for their tolerance of other religions for a reason. It's because it is in our religion never to force somebody, never to convince somebody, never to insult or offend somebody based on their faith. As the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, your faith is with you and their faith is with them. And there was another hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, where he said, do not insult them on their false deities, lest they would then insult you on your real God. So in other words, you may think that their deities are false and fake. That's fine. But do not offend them, do not insult them, because, okay, you know that God is real. You know that you're worshiping the real God, but because of your attitude, because of the way you've behaved with them, because you've insulted them and their gods, who's to stop them from insulting your God? In other words, respect other people's faith. You may not agree with them, but respect them. And then only will they also respect you, right? So, I may not have completed the list of the first and foremost rules of Islam in my previous podcast. I might choose to do so now, since we're talking about it. As I said, rule number 1, actions are judged by intentions. Yes, that is rule number 1. Actions are judged by intentions. Rule number 1, you cannot force anybody to do anything. You cannot even force anybody to believe in God. You cannot force anybody to pray. You cannot force anybody to do anything in Islam. You cannot even force somebody to get married. In fact, remember, the Prophet broke off and nullified all arranged marriages, even though the couples were happy. If you're happy, get married again the proper way, because that marriage, which you were forced into or which you were never asked about and you were just thrown into, that is invalid. So, rule number 1, actions are judged by intentions. Rule number 1, you cannot force anybody to even believe in God. You cannot force anybody to do anything, right? So based on these basic rules, statutory rules and laws, the rest of your laws automatically then apply. So that is because the reason I'm mentioning this again is because people have recently once again asked these questions, about hijab and this and that. And because they didn't understand, they were confused. So basically in Islam, you can wear whatever you want to. It applies both to men and women. You can wear whatever you want to as long as you're modestly dressed. Yes, modesty is also for men. Men cannot go around wearing shorts and and basically shirtless, okay? They cannot. They also have to be modestly dressed. Women also have to be modestly dressed, okay? Modestly dressed basically means that the clothes that the women wear should not enhance their figure. So if you wear flowy clothes, or if you wear loose fit clothes, it's fine. You're fine. As long as you're modestly covered, you're just fine. You're perfect. Okay, there's nothing wrong. You don't have to have outer garments and inner garments and this and that. That depends again on you. As I said, in the Arab world, the reason why they prefer using an outer garment, which is the abaya, which is like a cloak or an overcoat, is because it's simple for them. It makes things easier for them, because they can just remove the outer coat, put it on the side, and sit down in their destination where they don't need to be fully covered, as in where they don't need to do the double layering, So they can just remain in their own clothes. That means that they will have to be in a place where they are amongst relatives and they are amongst men who are mahram. Mahram men are those men who you cannot marry. You understand? Any man who can be a potential spouse is a na mahram. People usually try to translate it by saying strange men. No, they're not necessarily strange men. They can be known men amongst your relatives. Any man who can potentially be your future spouse, any man who you can potentially marry is a na mehram. And it is in front of such a man that we have to cover ourselves, do the hijab and all, right? All the men whom you cannot marry, no matter what, that is like blood relatives, blood relatives and fathers and uncles, again blood relatives, uncles and brothers, your own blood brothers, your biological brothers, your siblings, they come, your grandparents, your grandfathers, your grandfather's brothers, these are the kind of people, these are called mehram. These are the men who you just cannot marry, so that those are the men. And also older women, by the way, older women, as in women who hit menopause, they are not obliged to continue wearing the hijab. Yeah, they're not obliged to continue with the hijab, niqab and all. If they want, they can lay it aside. It's up to them. But they prefer, you must have noticed that the older the women are, they prefer to keep themselves covered anyway. But in Islam, actually, you're not required to. The older you are, the lesser the requirement for you to have your, hijab, your whole shawl wrapped around you, or your cloaks and outer garments and all. What I'm saying? So, yeah, you're not obliged to do the whole veil thing, the hijab thing, right? But it is recommended, so they prefer it. But yeah, and also girls who are minors, they also are not supposed to be observing the parda. They're not supposed to be observing the hijab and this and that. It's not for minors, okay? So there you are. It's only for pubescent females, okay? I hope that makes it clear. So coming back to the point, this is mainly, again, the reason why you will also see this is again something I talked about when I talked about jobs and formal clothing and formal attire and all, and why in Islamic countries you see a huge variety of female formal, semi-formal attire, and nobody can even question you on them, because again, one of the basic rules of Islam is, again, you cannot comment on what a woman is wearing, no matter what she's wearing, by the way. So that is another thing that you can come back to India and all. So for example, in India, if they say, oh, you're like, she's a foreign woman, she's wearing these kind of clothes, or even if she's dressed modestly, oh, we can touch her, we can do this. No. That is why you will find men in Muslim countries to be safer around, generally speaking. because in Islam this is just haram. A man cannot come near a strange woman and be all handsy, you know. The in fact the whole laws on sexual harassment in Islam are very, very clear, and I've mentioned these laws many times in my previous podcasts. That is why women actually feel safer in Muslim countries, because men know their limits. It's a crime. It's literally a crime to try and get physical with any woman, to try and get close to any woman that you don't know, any woman who's a stranger to you, you know. And it is also unacceptable in Islam for you to look at a woman properly. You understand? Yes, in case you didn't know that. But again, it depends on education. So it depends. If you, there are, as I said, the staring, the problem of staring is prevalent even in Pakistan, although luckily the foreigners have not, it seems they haven't come across it. Thank God for it. But we Pakistanis, we have borne the brunt of the culture of staring, which again is actually not allowed in Islam. In Islam, it's literally a sin and a crime to stare at people, you know? That, yes, that is one of those Islamic laws that have been borrowed and are implemented in the Western society. Yes, it is against Islamic etiquette. A woman cannot stare at a man as well, actually, but a man definitely cannot stare at a woman. But here in villages, as I said, and I've explained this whole thing, this has nothing to do with religion and all. This is basically something you will see even in the Western countries, by the way. When you go to villages and small towns in the West, people will stop and stare at you. It's not because you're a female, it's not because you're a male, it's because you're a stranger who they do not know, and because strangers usually do not come there, so they're not used to having a stranger, so they will stop and stare. You'll see that in America, you will see that in England, you will see that even in Canada, you will see that even in Australia, you will see that everywhere in the world. You will see it in Africa, you will see it in China, you will see it in Korea, you will see it in Japan, you will see it everywhere, I'm telling you. You will see it in India and you will see it in Pakistan. So it depends, really. The reason why many tourists in Pakistan have not suffered from the staring thing in Pakistan is because, as I said, when you come as a guest in Pakistan, so for example, you're not alone, right? If you're going to a remote area in Pakistan, you're always accompanied by somebody who has a relative or an acquaintance in that area, right? Most probably that's the case. Yeah. So then they will treat you as a guest. And obviously, then they will observe all their manners. They are not going to stop and stare at you. No. They will now see you as a guest, not as a strange person who just walked into their otherwise quiet village where everybody knows everybody. You get properly introduced to them, they introduce themselves to you, you know. That is the etiquette that is observed in Pakistan, which is again thankfully, this part of our hospitality etiquette is prevalent and is predominant in Pakistan. Yes, we treat our guests with great respect because to us our guests become like sort of your guests or like your family for that time, and you have to take extra good care of them. So yes, that is part of the Pakistani culture, and it is true you will not find it in India. And as I said, this is my own mother's experience again decades ago when she went to India. And she said the minute they found out that she was from Pakistan, they tried to scam her. So we thought that okay, it's because of their hatred maybe for Pakistanis or something. But as you can see, it's not. It's like the minute they find out anybody's a foreigner, then they try to scam them. So this has been going on for ages, right? Yeah. Yeah, no. India has never been a hospitable country, to be honest. But at the same time, you know what? If you go to Punjab, the Punjab side of India, they are very much better. They're more hospitable, you know. The Sikh community, they're known for being hospitable as well. They're very close to us, in that way, to the Pakistanis. So yeah, again, I'm not defending, and I never did defend India. As what I'm saying is that you need to base your, your complaints on facts. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I am, as I said before, I am very happy about the fact that finally people are finding out more and more about what Pakistan really is all about. And they are finding out that India is actually not what it has always promoted itself to be. But you need to understand that essentially India is still a third world country as well. And it's a huge country. It is a huge country. Okay? You may try to show India to be the next superpower and all, but that has still a long time to go and a long ways to go too. Okay? You may try to degrade Pakistan's image and demean Pakistan's image, but that is all political. So the fact that it's actually the normal people's interactions with each other that have brought these aspects to light. Before, any and every information people got was controlled information. You see, it was all propaganda, it was all controlled information by authorities, governments, the media, and they all ran by a script. But now it's all unscripted. So basically, you're having real life people, common people, who are going to these countries and they're showing you on the spot their real life experiences as people, right? So when you have people to people interaction and then they are showing you what the reality is all about, that just broke the political narrative that India and America and England were so painstakingly building. Yes, they were literally building up this narrative, this anti-Pakistan narrative. Again, why? Because according to their plans, Pakistan shouldn't be existing now. It's now time to wrap Pakistan up, remember? So yeah, this has been their... Remember, whenever your media or your government starts propagating against a country, that is when you need to sit up, become more vigilant, and try to look for alternative media or alternate news. Okay? The fact that we know that the media is usually lying to us and yet we still end up believing whatever nonsense they spout is very disturbing, I know. It shows that we're conditioned. We're conditioned to listen to the news. To us, the news has to be authentic. There has to be something true in it, even though it's all lies. And that is what is so concerning. So, for example, China. America is always propagating against China. And so in your minds, the image of China is dictatorship, oppression, poverty, this, that. But now, as you see, now again, when regular people are showing you online what China is all about, it has forced your governments to shift the narrative. Not very happily, but that narrative has been shook, right? Why? Because regular people are coming out and telling you, oh, actually, China is the complete opposite of it. We're living here or we're traveling here, and it is actually it's and like, for example, one of the other things that America is usually propagating through its through its TV series, its films, Hollywood, this, that, and even news, is that oh, China is stealing technology from America. No, actually, that is actually unbelievable. Now, if there was news that America is stealing technology from China, I would actually believe that, because China is way ahead of America technology wise. It's a fact. I'm telling you, China had those kind of smartphones before the Western world brought out smartphones. I know, because I've actually seen them with my own eyes. I've seen Chinese smartphones, and I saw them way before anybody even knew what smartphones were, and they had these little pocket-sized smartphones. And years later, like literally about 2 to 3 years later, I saw the first batch of PDAs that came out in Europe. So you can imagine. China is way ahead in technology, believe me. They're way ahead in many aspects. The Western world is far behind, okay? The Middle East is ahead of the Western world in technology, again, also because the Middle East is not tied up with the West. The Middle East can freely work with other countries like China. The West has always been trying to tie up Pakistan, because Pakistan and China has a good relationship. That has always been a big problem with the West. Because again, if China and Pakistan continue their collaboration, Pakistan would again work with China, and Pakistan would use its own potential and, again, develop its technology at a faster rate. The reason why Pakistan couldn't develop its own technology at a faster rate is because of all the limitations and restrictions that have been placed on us by the Americans, in case you didn't know that. And this is why India grew economically faster than Pakistan, because India worked all the countries. They worked with Russia, they worked with America, they worked with all the countries they needed to. But Pakistan was not allowed to, despite the fact that Pakistan still worked with China. But every now and then, for example, Gwadar is the latest example of how America puts its foot in it every time. The Gwadar project, the corridor project, has been stopped 100% just because of America. And America wants to work with India to create, they're basically plagiarizing, they've literally plagiarized our corridor project. And they want to make it now, which they can't again. I don't know why they think they can, because there can be no corridor project, no actual corridor project without Pakistan. And Pakistan is the one that has the whole platform for it. But there you are. So, yeah, no, I would never defend India, because I already know that India always had these problematic issues. But the things in which I'm saying that you have a problem is when you're talking about hygiene, and because let me tell you again, in tropical countries, people bathe 3 times a day. In European countries, you go without a shower for days on end. And that's why actually you don't even realize it. You are developing BO in the process. But we cannot afford to go a day without a shower. It's a miracle if we have 1 shower a day. That means it's a good day. It's a good day if you have just 1 bath or 1 shower a day. Otherwise, we do not go through a day without having at least 2 showers. In the morning before you go out, and in the evening when you come back, you have to jump into the shower. There's just no other option. So these are the things that just make no sense, when you say Indians have no sense of Again, sense of hygiene is a problem when you talk about people who belong to villages or remote areas. And that again pertains to not just India, but it pertains to most of the countries all over the world, where hygiene becomes an issue. When you live in remote areas, you have other problems, you have other issues, and hygiene issues develop alongside. So that again has nothing to do with the person being Indian, is what I'm saying, okay? Because I have again seen people from many countries all over the world who have had these issues, and I've seen that there's one common factor: where they come from, as in they're coming from villages, remote villages, places where they do not have easy access to a lot of things. So it depends. I do know that India has a lot of issues, but as I said, pick on the right issues. For example, civic sense, lack of civic sense. You picked on it, I didn't complain. Rudeness, the way they treat foreigners, the way they treat guests, the way they treat tourists. I agree 100%, because as I said, it's something that people have experienced around me. So I already knew about this. This was something that, in fact, I never understood why the foreigners never came forward and talked about it. And so now, as I said, because of social media and everything, people are talking about it and people are listening, and so it's going viral. Before the social media, people may have talked about it, but I guess there were more ways to just snub them or to shut them up, or, you know. But now, because you have social media, you go viral in an instant. So it's things are different now. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Indians have a lot of issues. Yeah. And I think that it became aggravated. Yeah. Their behavior towards foreigners and towards tourists and towards people who are of different faiths, it has aggravated, because of their government, because they have an extreme Hindu Nazi government, you know. So that is basically why India has just gotten worse. And yes, I don't think it should be recommended that females travel alone in India. It has become very, very dangerous for even females in India, you know. But let me tell you, things are getting dangerous all over the world now. There is no country that is safe. Hell, England is not safe anymore. Have you seen the crime rate there? You know, Canada is not safe. Check out the crime rate there. You know, rape cases exist everywhere in the world, unfortunately. Strangely, again, except in different countries in the Middle East, including Qatar. You have zero rape cases, at least last time I heard, mashallah. And again, why? Strict Islamic laws observed. And by strict Islamic laws, I mean the real Islamic laws, not the pseudo-Islamic laws that post-colonial countries seem to adopt. That is my major problem with post-colonial Muslim countries is, in the name of Islam, you have actually still kept on with your pagan culture, and you've kept on with your colonial culture, and you've made this khichdi, you know, a melting pot. You know, it's just a bad hot mix of crap, you know. Yeah, but in places like Qatar, and even Syria, by the way, Syria also had zero crime rate, almost zero crime. It had one of the almost, you know, the least percentage of crime rate before America decided to initiate a civil war in Syria. Yes, America was behind it, and so was Israel. And I'm damned if anybody will try to just prove me wrong, please. We all know the truth. In fact, it's coming to light now. Before, I think I was the only one talking about it. Now, many people are actually talking about it with evidence. So, yeah, you know, Middle Eastern countries and countries like Maldives, and, you know, where they have your real Islamic principles implemented, people are safe. People are safe. People are wealthy enough to take care of themselves. Nobody's hitting poverty line. Nobody's going below poverty line, you know. So yeah, these are factors that you need to understand when looking into a country. You know, when you see the role that Islam has played in that country, and when they have utilized Islamic rules successfully, then that country has been a huge success, you know, in every aspect. And when you actually try to mix Islam with your pagan culture and your colonized culture, and you put it all together, then you end up with places like ours, where you have a lot of positives, but you have some negatives too. But fortunately, here Islam gives precedence in the way we treat our tourists and our guests. Fortunately, our culture doesn't give precedence. I mean, the Indian culture here didn't seep through. So it's mainly our Islamic belief and our Islamic culture that has taken over dominance in the way we treat our guests and tourists. So mashallah for that. But otherwise, we have a lot of toxic problems which have nothing to do with tourists, actually. These toxic problems that we face are purely amongst ourselves, you know. It's amazing, isn't it? It's something actually I talked about years ago, I remember, when I said that it's amazing how India is racist towards foreigners and tourists, and Pakistanis are racist towards each other. It is a fact. We are so busy being racist towards each other. We don't have time to be racist, towards for. It's weird. We Pakistanis, we are weird in our own way. But yeah, the amount of endurance and tolerance and nonchalance that we seem to pose it makes up a huge part of what we are known. It makes a huge part of us as of our identity, you can say, or our immediate culture as Pakistanis. But I find that very disturbing as a Pakistani, the fact that we're so laid back, and not again, nothing to do with tourists, but the fact that we're so laid back that we've allowed our government to screw us for so many decades. The fact that we have been laughing through it all is so disturbing. I think we shouldn't have been laughing through it all. I find it very sad that, you know why? Because when we will stop smiling, when it will hit us so bad that we have started to stop smiling, by the way, in case you didn't notice. These floods have been literally like the last straw on the camel's back. Yeah, these floods are literally the last straw. And still the people, they've stopped smiling, but they're just not getting up together, and they're not doing what the Indonesians did. They're not doing what the French did. They're not doing what we did before, when we collectively stood up and, worked hard to bring Imran Khan into power. And then we stood up again when he was arrested illegally. I mean, after that, we're just not getting that momentum. And it's very, very disturbing for me because, as I said, how much more longer can we laugh it off? How much more longer can we endure it? It is true that our tolerance is our plus point, our endurance is our plus point, our nonchalance, our laid back attitude, our friendliness, our hospitality, these are all our plus points. But you know what? If there will be no Pakistan left, then how are we going to show our hospitality, and to whom are we going to show our hospitality, and where is our generosity going to be exhibited, and who are we going to be smiling at? Definitely not each other anymore. And where there, if there is no Pakistan, you will not find any of this experience that people are raving about. In order to have this experience that the tourists have had in Pakistan, you have to have a thriving Pakistan. Well, anyway, this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.